and he was learning by the greatest teachers Israel had to offer, he still left and he went to Babel twice to learn Torah from other teachers, and eventually he moved to Babel. But when he's moving, and he's still
Rabbi, we lost you. All right. There we go.
Yeah, here we go. So we have an Israeli who leaves Israel and moves to the seat of the main Jewish community financially and scholastically, and that is to Babel. And he did it because he saw that Jews in Babel, the younger generation, was having a very hard time connecting to the Torah, learning Torah. So he went and he opened a yeshiva in the city of Surah. And from when he went there, from when he moved, the Babel became the center and the seat of Torah knowledge, Torah study, especially because Eretz Israel was then under the Roman rule, and the Romans were constantly persecuting the Jews day in, day out. Every once in a while, they're coming up with something new, thing they couldn't have thought of before. And in Babel, you're under the Persians or whoever ruled Babylonia at that time.
The Persians, yeah.
After the Korban of the second Mikdash, or second Mikdash, the Persians. And they were very kind, very, hospitable to the Jewish nation, to the Jewish people. And over there, Torah study really grew and really blossomed over there. So Rav describes the first time he came to the city of to Babel, and he was very perplexed by what he saw. And the Gemara is going to bring several halachas, several laws that we learned from the story of Rav. And the story, as we said, is Rav came to Babel on a fast day. Which fast day was it? Was it Tisha B'Av, or a different fast day, or a public fast? Will be a discussion soon. Kam Kara B'Sifra. He was called for an aliyah to the Torah, where everyone would read. In those days, everyone would read their own aliyah. Pasach Barich, Chatzim Le Barich. He made a bracha for the first aliyah. When he started, he did not make an after bracha, an after blessing, when he got the aliyah, and that was par for the course. Another thing that Rav did over there is Kuli Ami, Kul Ali Alma and Payu Kuli Ama and Nafal Kuli Alma and Payu V'Rav Nafal Loy Nafal Alape. When it came to Tachnun, everyone would bow down on their face. Rav would not. The Gemara what? Prostrating, right, entirely on their face. We do it, we don't prostrate on our face, except for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and everybody does it then, except those who are not physically capable. But then it was done by every single mincha. When we go like this, put our hands on our arm, then they will prostrate themselves on their face. And this is something that a chashav person, a prestigious, important person, should not embarrass or debase themselves in front of everyone else, in front of the congregation.
That was the reason.
So that's the reason given in Tosfos, yeah. So therefore, he should not fall on his face in front of everyone else, in front of the congregation. And we see Rabbi Gamliel, he would daven in mincha in private, in his own home, in order that people shouldn't see him prostrating his face. And there's many stories of that. In the Beis HaMikdash, everyone is nullified, like nothing in front of Hashem, in front of the Shekhinah. But everyone else, when they fell Tachnun, fell on their face, except for Rav. Rav did not do it. There's additional reasons that are given. perhaps the floor in that shul in Bavel was made out of stone, because Bavel was known for having stones from the times of the Beis Hamikdash, and you can't bow down on a stone floor. It has to be made out of something else, either carpet, or if there's stone, you put a towel or something else underneath. You can only bow down on stone in the Beis Hamikdash. If there's stone and there's nothing to bow down on, you could bow to your side instead of being on your knees to show that there's a little difference. In some places they would take grass and spread it out on the ground on Yom Kippur. That's what the Ramah writes. But in the Beis Hamikdash, they would bow down to Hashem on stone, because the Beis Hamikdash is a place in front. Literally, you're in front of Hashem's presence. However, a chashuv person, somebody who is very prestigious and important, is not allowed to bow down entirely in front of other people, even if there's no stones on the ground, because it's sort of embarrassing that people should not see him in such a position. They're going to think, oh, the Ravid, you know the Ravid is the one who always argued on the Rambam.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. There's the Kollel said that there were decrees from heaven against the Rambam, and the Ravid wanted to Mamtik didn't take away any judgments against the Rambam. That's why he constantly argued with him in order to take away any. Says, look, someone is not having it easy. I'm giving him a hard time. That's the reason Kollel gave why the Ravid constantly argued on the Rambam. But the Ravid says that if people see a big tzaddik bowing down, they're going to say to themselves, ha ha ha, this guy is a faker. He's not a real tzaddik. Hashem's not listening to him. He's not worthy of being answered. And therefore he's falling on his face in front of Hashem. You know who had that problem? Moshe Rabbeinu. How many times it says that he fell on his face to Hashem? Sometimes in front of the Jewish people. Right? The Torah says. But that's because by Korach.
Did he also do that?
Correct. Many times it says Moshe Rabbeinu fell on his face. Sometimes in front of Lifnei Kol Haladas Bnei Yisrael. The Torah says in front of all the Jewish people, meaning a desperate time, a time like that. Moshe Rabbeinu was willing to debase himself, being the humblest person in front of the entire Jewish nation. However, the only difference is, the Ravid does say, and the Taz brings down, is that if everyone in the shul is bowing down at the same time, then there's a place that the big tzaddik could do it together with everyone else.
What would you say?
If he's a big tzaddik,
Yeah.
if everyone is doing it at the same time, then it said it's fine. It says about Yeshua, after the Jewish people had a defeat in the city of Ai, and you know what they said? Oi. But after they had a defeat, he davened to Hashem, he fell on his face, together with the entire Sanhedrin, and the entire Jewish people saw Yeshua fell on his face. They all fell on their face together and bowed to Hashem and davened and did shuvah the rest of the day, until it was finally revealed the reason why they lost the battle was because Achan, who stole the treasures from the city of Yericho, and therefore they got punched.
In the city of Ai, right?
The city of Ai, correct.
Yeah, he stole from
Again?
He stole it from Ai.
He stole it from Jericho.
Yeah, oh, he stole from
So Hashem said everything that's taken from Jericho has to be given to, it's banned to be used. And he stole some precious gold bars and precious robes.
Oh, yeah, so they were defeated at Ai because of what he did in Jericho.
Correct.
Okay.
But he fell on his face, and everyone davened to Hashem. He says Yeshua was a great tzaddik, and Hashem told him, "Kum lama lech, get up and go. Why are you not lama nefil apenecha? Why are you falling and praying to me and falling on your face? You must go see who it was. Some of the treasure was stolen from Ai, was used, misappropriated, and you have to find out who did it." Now, there's different types of bowing. There's kida, shtachavaya, there's bowing on your knees, and then there's bowing on your face, like bending over. And then that's what we do on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. We on our knees and we bow, but then there's apayim arza, flat, frustrated. We've seen the drawings of it at other times, where one is totally flat on the ground. So that is the highest type of bowing down. And that's called apayim, on your face. During davening, we have nefilas apayim, falling on our face. Technically, you're supposed to fall prostrated, totally flat on the ground. We don't do that nowadays for various reasons. Meaning, because we're not such tzaddikim like we were back then, etc. Gemara asks the question, two things we're going to learn out of this story. One is we're going to try inferring about how you divide how many aliyahs we have on a fast day based on what Rav did. Rav making the blessing before and not after. And we're going to discuss halacha if about falling on your face, covering your face during tachnun, during the supplications after Shemona Esrei. So says the Gemara, Mechti. Let's discuss this. Rav b'Yisrael hava. Rav b'Yisrael kara. Rav was not a Kohen. Rav was not a Levi. What was he? A Yisrael. So who gets a third aliyah? A Yisrael. And he got his aliyah on a fast day. And he says he made a blessing before his aliyah, but he did not make a blessing after. My time achasim lebarich. So for Rav, if there's only 3 aliyahs on a fast day, so Rav is a third reader because he's not a Kohen or a Levi. So he receives a third aliyah, and being that he received a third aliyah, the final aliyah, he should have made a blessing after. So this question we had before, maybe on a fast day, we should have 4 aliyahs because we add an extra prayer, an extra paragraph, the Shemona Esrei, called Anenu, on a fast day. So because of that, maybe have an extra aliyah. So maybe from here, from this anecdote, is a proof that there are 4 aliyahs on a fast day.
5 because he didn't say the following bracha.
Meaning?
If he had to say an aliyah for
the blessing
next
before.
step,
Yeah.
then he didn't say the after bracha, which means there should have been somebody after him.
Right. He was third.
So you should have had a 4th.
You should have had a 4th. So maybe from here is a proof that you have 4.
I thought the first one.
First is a coin.
First aliyahs. The first one would say one.
Right.
The second one didn't, and the third one would say the after bracha.
Right.
So he comes along and he says the first aliyah.
Right.
But he doesn't say, I mean.
He says the first bracha,
the
correct.
first bracha, but not the end bracha, which means you must have somebody afterwards.
Mhm. Correct.
Okay.
So the point that Mike is bringing is a very valid point. We're going to say, if he's getting a aliyah in the middle, third aliyah, why is he making a previous bracha, the first one? Maybe he didn't get the third aliyah, maybe he got an earlier aliyah. And maybe from there, there's no proof that there are 4 aliyahs. So Rav was in Israel. My taima chasim v'lebarich. What is the reason, Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Karp, that Rav only made a bracha before his aliyah? Lav mishum debay l'mikra charina basrei. Maybe there are 4 aliyahs on a fast day, and like our question of the Gemara, do we add a 4th aliyah on a fast day because of the extra paragraph of Aminu that we add to Shemona Esrei? The Gemara answers, Loi, Rav b'kahani kara. It's very possible, like Mike is saying, from the fact that Rav made a blessing only before, maybe he did get the first aliyah, maybe he got the aliyah that belongs to a Kohen. Why would Rav be able to get the aliyah that belongs to a Kohen? The Rav Huna, kare b'kahani. Because we know from another anecdote that Rav Huna, who was a very great Torah scholar, and because he was so respected, and they say he was the most respected Torah scholar of his time, he was from the earlier generations of the Amoraim. So therefore, Rav Huna receive the first aliyah, although he's not a kohen. Generally, if a kohen wants to give up his right for the first aliyah, there would be a place to do it, for him to do it. But the thing is, you're opening up a can of worms. Because everyone's going to say, oh, I want the aliyah, go over to the kohen, I have a yortzeit today, could I have your aliyah? So the Chachamim, so the sages said that a kohen cannot give up his aliyah. So if a kohen has the first aliyah, he cannot give up his right to receive the first aliyah. We don't want any conflicts arriving in the shul.
And so that's why you sometimes see, if a Kohen what's to give to somebody else, so the Kohen steps outside then, right?
If he steps out, that's a different story. There's no kohen in the shul then.
Then you have to have all the Levies step outside too,
Right.
right? You had a lot of people leaving.
Unless you say that if the kohen's out, correct. But there are times that it's open, that it's like that.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also thinking that it's like, you may need a rabbi's input, actually. He's supposed to say, I'm going to be giving up actually to a Talmid Chacham. They may have all of these ordinary people. To them, some guy's a big Talmid Chacham.
Correct. So it's going to be very resentful. The guy is going to say, he goes over to the kohen, can I have your aliyah today?
Yeah, but
And the kohen says no. But he said yes to him last week, and you start making more fights in the shul, and we already have.
I was thinking that like it's the problem with leaving the decision to the ordinary people who is the Talmid Chacham is they may each one may say, oh, he is the rabbi would be able to be objective, saying, oh, I know who's the Talmid Chacham, it's this guy.
Right. So they only allowed it in the case of a outstanding Talmid Chacham, like one person per generation. That style. So Rav Huna was the most outstanding one of his times. They allowed him to receive kohen.
And nobody would dispute that.
Nobody would dispute Rav Huna. Correct.
Call him a Talmid Chacham, yeah.
So Rav would be in the same category, right? So Rav would. So the fact that he made a bracha before his aliyah, not after, could be because maybe he got the aliyah, the first aliyah. The kohen allowed it, and nobody disputed it. Nowadays, the kohen always gets the first aliyah, even if you have the most outstanding Torah scholar in the entire world there, because who are we to start judging? It's not really defined. What's a Talmid Chacham? What's a Torah scholar?
And in those days, they knew more, huh?
They definitely knew more then, but to start singling out into specific individuals to come before the kohen, that could lead to the disputes today. So from this anecdote is no proof that on a fast day we should have a fourth aliyah, because Rav, although he was a Yisrael, it's very possible that he got the aliyah of kohen because he was so unique and highly respected, just like Rav Huna during his heyday. So the Gemara says, you can't bring me a proof from Rav Huna because Rav Huna was so altogether unique. So Gemara says like this, and it's very interesting Gemara to start comparing the greatness of rabbis one to the other. Let's see. Shlam Rav Huna, Kari Bekehani. Rav Huna was so great that he was able to read aliyah of kohen. He was able to receive the first aliyah, although he was not a kohen. The filu Rav Ami, the Rav Asi, the Kahani Chashivi Da'ar Yisrael. He had two great preeminent kohanim in the Holy Land of Israel, which is Rav Ami and Rav Asi. All right, they're very next to each other, actually. Mekif Kaifu Rav Huna. They were subordinate to Rav Huna. And they respected Rav Huna because of his greatness. And the Beis Yosef as on from the Rush, even if he's not necessarily the Nasi, the leader of the generation, the head of the Bezdin, or Sanhedrin of that generation, even if he's just a tremendous Talmid Chacham, right? And even though he's not a Goyin, even though he's not a Rav of a city, but he's a tremendous Talmid Chacham, even then, if they're in that caliber, they could also receive Kohen. Hello, Rav. But who says Rav was so great? Was Rav on that caliber that where everybody was subordinate to him? All the Kohanim? Ha'iko Shmuel the Kohanim Hava. Shmuel was a kohen. V'diber aleha. Udvar alei. Dvar usually means speak, but the word yadber means to control. Yadber sanenu tachtenu. May Hashem sort of crush our enemies under us. It's from the Misha Berach that we make for the Israeli soldiers. Yadber. Yaakov, welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi. Erev Tu B'Shvat Sameach.
Tu B'Shvat Sameach, that's right. 222. For you, you're ready Tu B'Shvat. We have another couple hours to go. And Chamisha. So we have Shmuel was a Kohen. Udvar, Yadber means and he was in stature greater than Rav, as we find in the Gemara. I'm going to bring this up over here. Baba Mesechta Megillah Daf Pei Amud Aleph 80a, that Rav would always walk in after Shmuel. All right, first Shmuel will walk in, and then Rav will walk in. So Shmuel was greater than Rav, and Shmuel was a Kohen. Here it is. Rav and Shmuel and Rav Asi, they came to the house of a bris milah, and some say they came to whatever a pidyon haben. Rav le'ayel kami de Shmuel. Rav will not enter before Shmuel. So Shmuel is greater than Rav. Shmuel will not go in before Rav Asi. Rav Asi did not go in before Rav. So nobody wants to walk in front of the other one. Like you remember Mr. Picard, the silversmith, and he said he's from England, and there was one time a woman became pregnant, and she was expecting her child, and she never had a child, and it went on for years and years, and she passed away in her 90s, and she never gave birth. Nothing like this ever happened in the world. So in England, they opened after she passed away, they opened her up, and they saw two old men with long white beards. Each one is saying, "After you, after you." So who should go in first? And they had a discussion who should go in first. And you can look over there in the Gemara for what exactly happened at the end. But we see that not everybody was subservient to Rav. Shmuel was a Kohen, and Shmuel was in the land of Bavel before Rav was, as we learned in the Gemara yesterday. Shmuel was sitting with Ketina, and the water started jumping. He's saying Rav is coming to some unique person is coming to Bavel. So how could Rav receive that Lu of Kohen if not everybody was subservient to him? Because we see Shmuel was a Kohen, and Shmuel was greater or came before Rav in certain situations. The Gemara answers, Shmuel nami mekif have a kafir leil Rav. Rav would have they covered. No, in fact, it was the other way around. Shmuel actually was subservient to Rav. He admitted and he agreed that Rav was greater than him. This that Rav placed him first was because Rav was a humble person. Rav placed him first because of a story that happened. There's a story in the Gemara Mesechta Shabbos Daf. Let's get the Gemara Mesechta Shabbos Daf Kuf Chesam and Aleph. Very sad story where the Gemara says wrong place. Kuf Ches 108. 108. Here it is. It's a very sad story because one time a certain event happened, and unfortunately someone gave a klela. They cursed out Rav. They cursed Rav that he should not have children.
Rav cursed Shmuel, right?
Correct. No. It says Shmuel brought Rav into his house. He fed him barley bread for fried fish. He gave him shecher, he gave him the beer to drink, and he did not show Rav the bathroom because Shmuel was a doctor and he wanted to heal Rav. And by feeding Rav food, it would heal Rav. Rav was unaware of what Shmuel said. Layit Rav Amar man bani. Rav cursed Shmuel and said, "Whoever causes me suffering, his children should not survive." And that's what happened. Although Rav eventually found out and he regretted what he ever said, but what he said unfortunately happened, and Shmuel did not have children who survived. Because of that, Rav felt terrible his entire life, and he kept on giving tremendous honor to Shmuel whenever he could. So Rav made himself subservient to Shmuel. But in essence, Rav was actually greater, and Shmuel was cognizant of the fact that the Rav is actually greater than him, and therefore Rav is allowed to receive the aliyah of Kohen. You realize how we have to do mental gymnastics in order to show why someone is allowed to have the aliyah of Kohen. It's not the honor of a Kohen is a very special, important thing. And so when Rav was in front of Shmuel, he was in Shmuel's presence, so then he would let Shmuel go first. When he was not in Shmuel's presence, then Rav would accept all the honor due to him, due to his position. And therefore, Rav would receive the first aliyah of the Kohen, when Shmuel was not present. The Gemara comments, Hachinami Mistabra, the Rav Kahani Kara. And so too, it is logical, more reasonable to say that Rav read the Kohen's portion of the first aliyah. The Soka Daitach, Yisra Kara, Lefanaha Mai Taima Barich. Why did Rav only recite a blessing before his aliyah, not after his aliyah? It must be that he got the first aliyah as well. Right, we'll pause the Gemara over here. We'll continue with Kuntres Umaayon for today for a little bit.
Actually, nowadays, we're not as concerned as far as Ayin Hara curses anymore, right?
No, we are very concerned about curses. So you should never ever curse another Jew.
Yeah.
And God forbid, if somebody says something, it could unfortunately have negative repercussions. We should be very, very careful to control our tongue.
Oh yeah.
That's a very important thing.
I'm saying like if you nowadays if you can counteract, especially by when we don't together curses like you cannot counteract things by dancing and everything.
Are you talking about Ayin Hara?
Yeah.
Ayin Hara is a completely different ballgame. I'm not familiar with it. I have not really taken Ayin Hara courses, so I'm not sure exactly how it works. Many people wrote to the Rebbe about Ayin Hara. We feel there's an Ayin Hara on us. The Rebbe wrote back very unequivocally, and we have several dozen times that's printed in the Rebbe's letters. I'm sure many more times. The Rebbe says, if you're not if you're not nervous about it, you're nothing to worry about. If you can start getting nervous about it, maybe from Shemayim we'll start looking into it more. But if you don't take it into account, an Ayin Hara is nothing to worry about.
Well, it's like they say it's first like the weakening of the spiritual stuff, so it also lends a big evil spiritual stuff. Also, we could if we heard something like that. Right?
The Ayin Hara, especially in the old country, there was a big deal about it. It's called Oshsprechen Ayin Hara, to whisper it away. People have different lachashes, enchantments, they say, or lead, and all these things are perhaps valid. I'm just not the authority on this. I don't know anything about it.
How was the Rebbe called up for Torah?
By Yisrael.
He was up by Israel.
By Israel, by the third Aliyah. Yeah. No, they wouldn't call him up as a Kohen. What they would do very often is, like Mike said, is you had a bar mitzvah boy who wanted to have his Aliyah, at the same minyan as a Rebbe. And many times you have many bar mitzvah boys. So there were times when there's bar mitzvah boy, you had one was a Kohen, one was a Levi, and one was Yisrael. or the Rebbe would always get the third aliyah, sometimes the fourth aliyah, and there were times when they would ask the Kohanim to leave the room, and then they would give Kohen Levi, and then when Baruch Hashem, when one of my children was born, she was born on Shabbos. I have the best mazel, best luck. I have Shabbos and Yom Kippur together. A child born, take a taxi together to the hospital on that day. Another one or two of Shabbos and Yom Tiv. Baruch Hashem, we always have the best mazel. So I ended up in what's the name of the hospital? One of the hospitals in Manhattan, not near any real Jewish community. And we had a Baruch Hashem, a baby girl that day, and by Mincha, we had a Shabbos. The baby was born Shabbos afternoon, let's say. And then we went down. Every hospital in New York has what's called a Bikur Cholim room. A room where, just for Jewish patients or Jewish family, there's always hot kosher food, top black kosher, and there's books and svarim, and literally it's tremendous chesed. Volunteers who staff it. And so we went to the Bikur Cholim room. They have a little tiny Aron Kodesh with a little tiny Torah. You can make minyanim there. So we had a minyan for Mincha on Shabbos, and there were three fathers who had baby girls all that day. One was a Kohen, one was a Levi, and then there was me, who was a Yisrael, and each of us got an aliyah by Mincha, of that Mincha. Right, the fathers, we all took a taxi on Shabbos to the hospital from wherever we lived. Right, one was called Kohen, one called Levi, one called Yisrael. Three different.
Is it special if you're born on Shabbos? Is it a good similar?
I hope so. Hope it's special if you're born on Shabbos on Yom Kippur, but we're going to save on her bas mitzvah, Baruch Hashem. She's born on Yom Kippur, so we save on the party.
And this we can have more money for the wedding.
Yeah, no, it's all taken on jewelry.
בקשר לעין הרע, בזין דכסלו תש"ן, הרבי סיגר איגרת לאישה בשם מרת יוכבד, והוא כתב לה שבאם המזוזות כשרות, והעיקר הנהגה יומית, אי אפשר כלל שישלוט בעין הרע. אין עין הרע, אם המזוזות כשרות, הכל בסדר.
And what he's saying was a very good thing. Make sure your mezuzahs are kosher.
Yes.
And then you could relax, take your mind off of it. Don't think about it at all. Then if you're not thinking about it, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's just like I say, actually, that so you have experts actually haunted houses. If a Jew is keeping different mitzvahs, the mitzvahs will protect them. You don't have to worry about the haunted house.
No, it's a famous story of Rav Huna, right? Rav Huna, before he was born, this is one of the early sources for wearing a yarmulke. Before he was born, the stargazers looked in the stars, and they said, "We see in the stars this boy is going to be a prolific thief, a ganav." And so from when he was born, his parents made sure that he always wore a yarmulke, like a covering over his head. Because if he has a covering over his head, so then he would remember that Hashem is on top of him. A yarmulke is yarei kel, you have the fear of Hashem. And he would always remember Hashem in front of him. Then, one time he was teaching his Talmidim, teaching students, and they were in a field under a tree, privately owned tree, a fig tree. And as he was teaching, his turban, his yarmulke fell off, and the urge to steal became so strong that he literally, from his place, he sprung up, and with his teeth, he grabbed the date off of the tree that he was sitting under. The urge to steal was literally so strong and it was only being kept under wraps, you could say, because he was wearing constantly a yarmulke. Right, so the Gemara Mesechta Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Vav, the last Amud, tells you many things what happened to a person. If you're born on Sunday, you'll be this. If you're born on Tuesday, you'll be that. If you're born in this hour of the day, this will happen. None of these things are definite. It just means that you have a propensity towards it. Meaning, as the Rebbe says, your nature is going in that direction.
Like King David was a man of war.
King David was a man of blood.
And if he hadn't actually been a tzaddik, he could have been like Esau.
Correct. Correct. As Shmuel Munkus, we mentioned him before, right? He said, if I wasn't a chassid, I would have gone and swindled everyone else out of their money and bought a lot of mashka with it.
But it's just like I say it's for myself. I had the brains to be
Correct.
A manipulator.
Correct.
I'm nice guy, so don't manipulate.
But let's read a little bit in Kuntres Umaayon. I'm not sure. Oh, I didn't share it yet. Sorry, I thought I did. New share. Let's go again like this. One. Excellent. We're discussing the idea of Chachma. It says the whole entire book we're learning is called Kuntres Umaayon, the book of the Mayan, of the spring. It says Mayan yatzal mi Beit Hashem, and his spring went out from the house of Hashem. Quoting what's the vision he's going to see in the future, when Mashiach comes, he says that I see that a spring goes out from the house of Hashem, and it watered, it says a Yoel, the whole entire valley of Shittim. And right away, we started explaining this pasuk, this verse, in spiritual terms. Shittim means shtus, foolishness, or extremism, and people are extremists against going against the way of Hashem and the Torah. And we explained how that's foolishness. It comes from the word shtus. Mayan, a spring, comes out from the house of Hashem. So we're going to start explaining every single word of this pasuk. Umayan is a spring. What is special about a spring? I'm going to pull up some pictures. Here's, like I say, a spring. In general, a mikveh has to have a certain size, called 40 sa'ah. I think it's about 200 to 300 gallons of water. That's the size of a mikveh, minimum size. And to go, well, what's a mikveh? A mikveh is a pool of water, where water is gathered and it's still. If somebody goes to mikveh in a stream of water, even if it's smaller than that size, if they're a very small person and they fit into less water, if technically their entire body would somehow be able to be covered by water with one drop of water, they went to the mikveh and it's kosher. It's a kosher mikveh, even if it's less than 40 sa'ah. Why? Because it's connected to its source. It's connected to where it comes from. And same thing, Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov when he had a vision on Rosh Hashanah, and Baal Shem Tov asked Mashiach, when will you come? When will you redeem us? Mashiach answered, Baal Shem Tov, when your well springs spread out. A spring, the water, the same water that's there in the source underground is the same water that comes out and the person receives. Nothing changes. It's the same exact thing as the same, and in halacha to make the person tahar. That's the idea of a mayan, a wellspring. The Rambam calls the mayanot hachachma, the well springs of the level of chachma. We explained yesterday what chachma is. Chachma doesn't mean wisdom. That's intellect. That's machshava, facts. That fits to bina more. Chachma is the ability to know, and more important, the desire to know something that you don't have. That is chachma. Curiosity would be a very apt description of the idea of chachma. It says koachma. A mayan, it says a mayan, a spring goes out from the house of Hashem. The spring is going on the level of chachma. Why is a mayan? Why is a spring called chachma? So let's see what he says, what it's said written inside. V'hinei, mayan u'bechinas chachma. A wellspring is a level of chachma. U'k'moshe kasuv b'sefer Kihilas Yaakov b'shem Araya Mehemna. As it is written in this sefer from one of the Talmidim of the Arizal called Kihilas Yaakov. We have with us a very important Yaakov. And in the name of the Raya Mehemna, another sefer of Kabbalah, Hidua be'inyi nahar u'mayim. The difference between a river and a spring. Nahar u'sfira sabina. As those who learned Ner Mitzvah Torah are, Chassidus and Mittel Rebbe, when it comes to our Rebbes, the Alter Rebbe is a level of Chachma, the Mittel Rebbe is a level of Bina. The Alter Rebbe, his Marmarim are very short, to the point. A lot of depth he had to work on to get there. Mittler Rebbe, his Maamarim are extremely long, very, very long in length. He would say Chassidus for 18 hours straight at times, 20 hours straight even, with a break just for davening. Mincha.
And I think. Interrupt for a moment. It seems actually that the Mittler Rebbe, I'm sure each Rebbe is sent actually when he's needed. In case of the Mittler Rebbe, he came at a time in which there was disagreement about how to interpret actually.
The Alter Rebbe?
The Alter Rebbe, so that you had the top student of the Alter Rebbe, and he was interpreting one way, and so the Mittler
Correct.
Rebbe was actually saying, no, here's how it goes.
Right. It's another discussion about Rabbi Scheller, and we could go into that. Hashem. He was a great chassid of the Alter Rebbe, and he thought that he understood the Alter Rebbe's path best. And actually, many of the great students of the Alter Rebbe actually followed him, some for a short time, some for a longer time. Okay, the difference of a river and a stream. A river is Sfira Sabina, called Rechoives Hanar. So in the beginning of Shar Yichud, the Mittler Rebbe explains a river has three parts: the width, the depth, and the length. And when it comes to Bina, which is a second hay of Hashem's name, you have three sides, and each one represents the idea of the width of the idea is getting more ideas, the depth of the river. That's where the deeper you go in the river, the stronger the current is, correct? Above the water, it looks very calm, and you go down under the surface, it gets very, very, very strong. That's the idea of the deeper you go, the more comes out, the more and more it gets developed. And then the length is to bring it out and see how it applies into other areas as well. That's the idea of Bina of the Mittler Rebbe. It's a Hevash of Hashem's name. That's called a river. A Mayan, a stream, is called a level of Chachma, well springs. What's a well springs? It's coming out from the depths, meaning we're looking at the source where it comes from, as opposed to what it is doing and where it is going. That's the idea of a Mayan. The Mikra of Choives Hanar, a river is called the width of the river. The Yois is called Inyan Hanar, the idea of a river is that the characteristic that it's long, that it's wide. You come to a place like Pittsburgh, we're full of rivers, and they're deep, and they go for very great distances. And that's the idea of Bina, which takes the one little idea you had, the kernel of the idea, which is in Chachma, and to develop it and to make it into a whole long Megillah. As the Tzemach Tzedek said about his father-in-law, the Mittler Rebbe, my father-in-law made from the other vart a kvart. From every line of the Alter Rebbe, he would expound on it and make it a whole bucket. From every word, from every line of the Alter Rebbe. Shehefresh b'neim, umayim is Sfiras HaChachma. A wellspring is the idea of Chachma. A shehefresh b'neim. What's the difference of a river and a spring? In Na'ar, Hagam shemispashir ba'richus u'v'reichiv gadol shemismal ekol kidaisav. You can have a river which is very long. At times it overflows. Many rivers in many places overflow all around the world. A river could stop if it's fed from waters which come from the mountains or rain. It could be a drought. I just read the end of the paragraph. We'll make this one large because I have a bunch of slides to show. A river, although it's very large and it could sometimes overflow, but it might still dry out. A mayan, a wellspring, never dries out. Even if it goes sometimes very slowly, or drop by drop, it never stops. I just brought up some examples of a river which dries up. Here's some big rivers around the world. Here, lots of examples. Right, this is from a few years ago. You see rivers all around the world, which are dried out, right? That's a 2021, 2022 in China. This is in examples from all over.
Well, that's why actually when you see actual, maps, so those would be like, I don't understand.
Here's Düsseldorf, Germany. You see that's a river 2021, and that's a river in 2022.
I mean, that's actually, when you see a map, sometimes a river, and then you see dry, and then you see, when you see, how come it has the same name? It's because it was connected up. Is the only thing that right now it dried up partially, that they could just let
Correct.
it flow again, and it'll be perfect.
So a river has ebbs, stronger and weaker.
Mhm.
And it says a river which dries up once every 7 years is not allowed to be used for a mikveh
Mm.
because it has no connection to its source. It's not a river. It's considered to be just flowing water, which is not kosher for a mikveh. Like water poured out of a pail, which is not kosher for a mikveh if you go to that mikveh in that water. A wellspring comes from the depths of the ground. And so that will never dry up because the groundwater Hashem made is always over there, constantly underneath. Like it says over here, "V'nishtu mayim me'hayam, v'nar yechrav v'yivash." Hashem is speaking about Egypt, and Hashem says, the water from the sea shall dry up, and the river shall dry up and become arid, become completely dry. It's talking about the punishment the Egyptians will get, that the Nile River will dry up because there's no rainwater in Mitzrayim in Egypt. And the way they irrigate the entire country is through the river, through the Nile River, through the Nilus. And since Paro held himself as a deity, as a god, and he says, I created the river, therefore Hashem says that I am going to dry up the entire Nile River.
What came with the job, if you were Pharaoh, you were supposed to be a god.
Mhm.
According to the historians, it came with the job.
Correct.
If you were Pharaoh, you had to be a god.
So that's a difference of a wellspring, a spring which comes from the ground. That's kosher for a mikveh, even if it's a little bit, as long as the entire body of a person fits underneath. And a river, which has specific conditions, and a river has to be a river which does not dry up once every several years. And what's the difference? Why is one chachma, one is bina? So we explained, chachma always is connected to its source. Chachma's idea of ma, who am I? Where is it? Koyach ma. The ability, here it is, right? Chachma, the letters chachma respelled to koyach ma, the ability to ask what. Be curious to know what's outside of me. That's the idea of chachma.
And bina
And therefore, it's not about me, it's about my source.
Mhm.
So if there's something else from my source, which I could understand is right, so then I'll go for that. And that's the idea of chachma. That's the idea of a mayan, which is connected to its source. Bina, on the contrary, is like a river, which if it's not connected to its source, it's invalid for a mikveh. And even then, if it was connected to its source, you have to stop it and collect it without having stopped in the mikveh 40 sa with very unique conditions, because that's the idea of when you have unlimited seichel, unlimited analyzations, it has to be only in specific ways, the ways that Torah wants, ways that Torah could say.
The bina means understanding, right?
Right. The idea of Mesiras Nefesh,
Mhm.
ready to give up your life for self-sacrifice, going beyond, or it's called Shtus of Kedusha, that comes from the level of Chachma. Many paragraphs, many chapters in Tanya talk about the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. Every Jew is willing to give up their life for Hashem when push comes to shove, and to just recognize every mitzvah is literally a test of faith in every Aveda. And that comes from the level of Chachma, which is the idea of not being self-important.
Mhm.
So with that, we're going to